The world of archaeology and religious studies has been shaken by an unexpected and groundbreaking discovery. An ancient papyrus fragment, forgotten for centuries in the archives of a German university, has come to light, challenging our understanding of the early years of Jesus of Nazareth. Despite its small size, this document is one of the most significant finds in recent history, as its contents could change the way we perceive the childhood of Jesus Christ. What makes this papyrus so special is not only its age, but also the fascinating story it contains, a narrative previously known only through apocryphal Gospels, which could shed light on a period of Jesus' life shrouded in mystery. But how is it possible that a document of such importance remained hidden for so long? Why do the canonical Gospels remain silent about Jesus' childhood? Could this discovery reshape our understanding of early Christianity? Join us on this fascinating journey through history, archaeology, and theology as we delve into the contents of the papyrus, its historical context, and the impact it could have on our vision of Jesus. If you are passionate about history, archaeology, and the mysteries of religion, stay with us until the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more content on these captivating topics. The incredible discovery of the lost papyrus. The discovery took place in an unexpected location, the University of Hamburg, Germany. There, researchers Gabriel Nocchi Macedo and Lajos Berkes were conducting a systematic analysis of ancient documents when they came across a small papyrus fragment that had remained uncatalogued for decades. The fragment, measuring only 11 by 5 centimeters, contained 13 lines of text written in Greek. At first glance, it seemed like a minor document, one of the many ancient texts that have survived over time. However, a more detailed examination revealed its extraordinary value. Analysis and dating of the document. To determine the authenticity and age of the papyrus, researchers employed several techniques. Paleographic analysis. They compared the handwriting of the papyrus with other known ancient documents, identifying stylistic features that placed it between the 4th and 5th centuries AD. Carbon-14 dating. Although this technique is not always used for such small texts, as it requires destroying part of the material, preliminary studies confirmed the estimated antiquity of the manuscript. Textual comparison. Experts found similarities between the content of the papyrus and passages from the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, an apocryphal text narrating episodes from Jesus' childhood. These analyses led to a groundbreaking conclusion. The papyrus fragment discovered in Hamburg is the oldest known manuscript mentioning the childhood of Jesus. The miracle of the clay sparrows. The content of the papyrus describes a fascinating episode that, until now, was known only through the apocryphal Gospels. According to the text, Jesus was 5 years old and playing near a stream. While other children entertained themselves with ordinary games, he began molding small clay figures with his hands. He shaped 12 birds in total, crafting each one with great attention to detail. However, there was a problem. It was the Sabbath, the sacred day of rest in Jewish tradition. According to Mosaic law, any manual work was forbidden on this day. Some adult witnesses watched Jesus with curiosity and concern, as his actions could be seen as a transgression. Then something extraordinary happened. Jesus gently blew over the clay figures, and the small birds came to life. Before the astonished eyes of those present, the clay sparrows transformed into living creatures, flapping their wings and taking flight. This miracle, though simple in appearance, carries profound symbolism. Jesus as a creator. His ability to give life to the birds echoes the Genesis account, where God forms Adam from the dust of the earth. The conflict with Jewish law. Performing this act on the Sabbath suggests that Jesus was already challenging established norms from an early age. The revelation of his divinity. Despite being just a child, Jesus was already aware of his supernatural power. But why doesn't this story appear in the canonical Gospels? The great silence surrounding Jesus' childhood. One of the greatest mysteries of the New Testament is the lack of information about Jesus' childhood. If we examine the canonical Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we find that they focus on three key moments in his life: his birth and the surrounding events, the Annunciation, the visit of the Magi, the flight to Egypt. A brief episode from his childhood, when at age 12, he is found in the Temple of Jerusalem, discussing with religious teachers. His ministry, crucifixion, and resurrection. But between his birth and the beginning of his ministry at age 30, there is an enormous gap. Why do the Gospels remain silent about his childhood? There are several theories that attempt to explain this absence of information. Focus on his messianic mission. The Gospels were written with a clear purpose, to prove that Jesus was the Messiah. From this perspective, his childhood was not considered crucial to the narrative. Lack of reliable sources. The Gospels were written decades after Jesus' death. Without direct records of his childhood, it is possible that the evangelists simply did not have enough information. Theological censorship. Some accounts of Jesus' childhood, especially those found in apocryphal Gospels, depict him with supernatural powers from a young age, sometimes acting impulsively or even destructively. The early church may have considered these stories incompatible with the image of a compassionate and loving Jesus. Regardless of the reason, this silence has intrigued believers and scholars for centuries. And this is where the apocryphal Gospels offer an alternative perspective. The apocryphal Gospels, the other side of early Christianity. To understand the significance of the papyrus discovered in Germany, it is essential to examine the apocryphal Gospels, texts that were excluded from the Bible but offer alternative accounts of Jesus' life. Unlike the canonical Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the apocryphal Gospels contain details that were not accepted in the official Christian tradition. These texts emerged in the first centuries after Christ and reflect the diversity of beliefs in early Christian communities. Some of the most well-known apocryphal Gospels include the Gospel of Thomas, contains a collection of teachings attributed to Jesus, many in the form of parables. The Infancy Gospel of Thomas narrates episodes from Jesus' childhood, including the miracle of the clay sparrows. The Protovangelium of James describes the childhood of Mary, the mother of Jesus, and her role in salvation history. The Gospel of Judas portrays Judas Iscariot not as a traitor, but as someone who helped fulfill Jesus' destiny. These Gospels were considered uninspired by early church leaders and were excluded from the biblical canon. However, their existence shows that there were multiple versions of Jesus' story in the early centuries of Christianity. The Infancy Gospel of Thomas, in particular, is key to understanding the papyrus discovered in Hamburg, as it is one of the few texts that recount episodes from Jesus' childhood. But why were these Gospels excluded from the Bible? Why were the apocryphal Gospels excluded? The process of deciding which texts to include in the Bible was long and complex. During the first centuries of Christianity, there was no unified New Testament. Numerous Gospels, letters, and accounts of Jesus circulated in different Christian communities. Over time, the early church began selecting which texts it considered authentic and which were heretical or unreliable. This process culminated in the 4th century when the biblical canon as we know it was established. The apocryphal Gospels were excluded for several reasons. Lack of credible authorship. Many of these texts were attributed to apostles but were actually written centuries after Jesus' death. Theological concerns. Some stories depicted Jesus as a child with supernatural powers, but with impulsive or even destructive behavior, contrasting with the compassionate Christ of the canonical Gospels. Diversity of beliefs in early Christianity. In the first centuries, Christianity was not a unified religion. Different groups held different beliefs: Gnostics, Docetists, Arians, etc. And some apocryphal Gospels reflected doctrines that the Church deemed incompatible with official faith. The Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, and later councils helped define the content of the New Testament, ultimately recognizing only 4 Gospels as canonical and rejecting dozens of apocryphal texts. Despite this, apocryphal Gospels continued to circulate in some Christian communities for centuries. In fact, many manuscripts were copied and preserved by monks and scribes, allowing them to survive to this day. The discovery of the papyrus in Hamburg confirms that these stories were still being read and transmitted in antiquity, raising fascinating questions. Was there more diversity in beliefs about Jesus than we previously thought? How many ancient texts remain hidden in libraries and monasteries? Could another discovery change what we know about the early centuries of Christianity? To answer these questions, we must understand how archaeology has helped uncover these lost texts. The role of archaeology in discovering lost texts. Archaeology has been crucial in recovering ancient texts once thought to be lost. In the past century, several discoveries have reshaped our understanding of early Christianity. The Dead Sea Scrolls, 1947 and 1956. One of the most important discoveries of the 20th century was the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the caves of Qumran, near the Dead Sea. These texts, written by a Jewish sect known as the Essenes, date between the 3rd century BC and the 1st century AD and contain fragments of almost every book of the Old Testament, along with apocryphal texts and religious commentaries. The discovery of these scrolls revolutionized our understanding of Judaism in the time of Jesus and revealed the diversity of religious interpretations that existed when Christianity emerged. The Gnostic Gospels of Nag Hammadi, 1945. In 1945, a collection of Gnostic texts was discovered in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. These documents include the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Gospel of Truth, among others. These texts present an alternative view of Jesus, focusing more on wisdom and spiritual enlightenment than on historical events of his life. The discovery of Nag Hammadi demonstrated that early Christianity was highly diverse, with different groups interpreting Jesus' message in various ways, some of which were later suppressed by the official church. The Hamburg Papyrus, a new chapter in history. The recent discovery of the papyrus at the University of Hamburg adds to this long tradition of archaeological findings that have changed our understanding of early Christianity. This fragment confirms that stories of Jesus' childhood continued to be copied and studied in the 4th or 5th century, suggesting that apocryphal Gospels had more influence than previously thought. Additionally, it raises an intriguing question. How many other ancient texts are still waiting to be discovered in libraries, monasteries, and archives around the world? Conclusion: a discovery that changes our vision of Jesus. The discovery of the Hamburg Papyrus is further proof that the history of Jesus still holds secrets waiting to be revealed. Every new archaeological discovery brings us closer to understanding how Jesus was perceived by his earliest followers and what they truly believed about his childhood and divinity. This papyrus fragment reminds us that early Christianity was much more diverse than we often assume. The image of Jesus was not uniform from the beginning. Different communities had different interpretations of his life and mission. The questions raised by this discovery are fascinating. What other lost texts are hidden in libraries and monasteries? Could more documents emerge that challenge our understanding of early Christianity? How will archaeology continue to shape our perception of Jesus in the coming years? What is clear is that archaeology continues to search for answers, and this discovery is just the beginning of a new chapter in our exploration of Christianity's past. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to subscribe for more content on history, archaeology, and religious mysteries.